Thank you for joining me today. I want to introduce Sarah Carpenter. She's the Chief Executive Officer for Like Family, which you'll hear a bit about. And she's an Associate Director of Product Development at Millennium Challenge Corporation, which is the same federal agency that I work at. She was an All-American rugby player, which I thought was very interesting. She's an entrepreneur starting this company, and she's a good friend. So Sarah, for those who don't know you, why don't you just tell us a bit about your background, where you're from, and who you are and what you do?
Sure. So, yes, I'm Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the invite. So I grew up in Chesterfield, Virginia, a little south of Richmond. Very country upbringing, finding crawdads in the creek out in the back, and just like a classic childhood, outdoors, playing capture the flag and all that stuff. High school, I was really into marching band and soccer, and when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew it had to be something that was so hard that it would keep me out of trouble. So I picked the hardest major I could think of, and that was chemistry. So I got my bachelor's in chemistry, and unfortunately I got really hurt playing soccer in high school, so I couldn't play that anymore because I couldn't do the in-step drive. And I remember walking by a really big field and seeing some girls put on soccer cleats, but there was no soccer balls. And I was like, what game is this? And they said, well, come back tomorrow, bring your cleats, and we'll tell you. And then I started playing rugby from that day on. And I was very, fortunate, since not very many women play. It was a really fun opportunity to kind of travel around and be easier to be recognized. And I loved rugby because it was just one of these things where no matter your body type, no matter your speed, no matter your personality, there's a position for you on the field. And I love those kind of inclusive sports where everyone doesn't have to look the same, be the same. So it was really, really cool to be a part of that. And so after I graduated, I became a high school chemistry teacher, one of the things you can do with that chemistry degree. I taught for a couple of years until I realized it was for the safety of the students and myself that I did not do that anymore. I didn't have an affinity for wearing lab goggles. We had lots of explosions and, dry ice bombs. I was much too young to be, leading the youth of the future, being a youth myself. So after a couple of years, I moved on to be a contractor for the Office of Naval Research, where I learned about procuring. And that was an interesting thing where I realized that even though I didn't have a traditional career in IT or anything like that, there was a different side to government and getting things was a skill. Being able to purchase in the government was a very powerful and attractive skill for people because it was complex. You had to word things just so. There's a lot of liability and all of that. So I was just kind of finding this there's this world of IT was something that's kind of unfamiliar, but the language and technical writing was something that I was starting to see wow, if I can write if I could solve a chemistry problem, then nothing can really be that hard. And I just kind of made it seem so reachable for me. So after a couple years there, I got offered a position at the Peace Corps to procure IT equipment, as on behalf of the government. And again, I, was kind of going in feeling very, very unqualified. But the person who hired me had been coincidentally a chemistry major in school, and she knew that problem solving was really a big part of IT. And she'd saw my procurement experience. So I started off in the government in logistics. And again, just procuring and kind of doing all the jobs that nobody else wanted to do in IT. So I was doing asset management, property management, asset disposals, just the dirty work. And that's one thing I've always found in life. If you're willing to do the things that nobody else wants to do and do them really well, odds are you'll get promoted someday because nobody wants to do that stuff. Right. And so after Peace Corps, I was there about 8 years, and I moved through the ranks. So went from logistics management to project management to manager to director of global customer support. So I probably had 100 employees under me all over the world, all the different time zones. And we just went through from post to post, the Peace Corps, refreshing their IT equipment, their hardware, their software, training the customers. It was such a fun job because you could have 10 different windows up of Skype back then, or maybe it was even Link, from different, just all over the world, one from Tonga, one from Fiji, one from Jamaica, and you're just chatting all around. And I just love that concept of how I could have this one screen and connect to so many people. So obviously connecting is having a big theme here. And so after Peace Corps, you have to time out at Peace Corps because they have this term limit. And I had a couple friends that worked at the Millennium Challenge Corporation, and they had a need for product development. And again, I didn't know, much about it. It was a new world for me because I worked in operations and customer support and kind of the hands-on tangible stuff. And then this kind of seemed like software development always seemed like magic to me. Like no one could do it but these magicians, and you kind of ask them for stuff and it would appear, and it was just very mysterious. So I was very intimidated to take the job. But I was excited to learn something new and see how the magic tricks worked. And so now I work at MCC doing their product development for their internal services. And it's been a really interesting experience. I've learned a lot. And through that product development experience, I think I've been able to gather these tools I've needed to start Like Family, which, there's a whole lot of sides to it. But one part of it is developing this product that people want to use, releasing new features that improve that customer experience. And so that's how I came from born in Chesterfield to sitting in front of you today.
Wow. So since you mentioned Like Family and that you've started the company and it's still fairly recent, tell us a bit about what that product is that you've created.
Sure. Yeah. So Like Family has evolved a lot. I think we've all changed as a result of the pandemic, and Like Family is no different. But essentially, right when the pandemic was coming around March, like that's when US started to really shut down. I was thinking these, people that are living by themselves might not have anyone to talk to. And I thought about, I'm always one of those people that annoys everyone on the commuter bus because I find that person that definitely wants to talk and give them a full conversation, give them an hour of my time as we commute in. And you always leave, like, sometimes you feel a little bit tired going into it. You leave energized, like you've improved someone's day and they've improved yours by, just that beauty of connection. And I was thinking about these very particular people that I knew weren't talking to anybody since the pandemic started. So March comes and then April comes and it's like, wow. So I started off targeting assisted living centers and senior living communities because I knew they were the most isolated. But then the more that the months marched on, I started to realize that being isolated and needing human connection, it's not reserved for one subset of the population. It's a human condition to need to connect. And that's when we really broadened what Like Family was and who it could connect. So we went from targeting, trying to get into senior living centers and trying to help them out. And plus with technology, like it just wasn't working, right? Because it was kind of all over the place. But the second we had the moment of like, wow, I can live in a house that's always noisy and still feel very lonely. And so we rolled out Like Family, and it's just a 30-minute session with a Like Family visitor. And our platform just enables you to get matched to somebody that can talk to what you want to talk about. And we match people based off of interests, or even sometimes people want to talk to someone who's very different than them. And we really just allow people to connect in what way feels organic to them and just do a little matchmaking on our side. And what we found is that there's these use cases coming out that we had never planned for, like a mentorship, like professional development, people going through similar life experiences that can provide some expertise that they never thought they would provide. It's amazing what I can talk to you about chemistry all day. I'll save that for some other sciencey podcasts that you start someday, but I don't use it every day, but I could talk to someone about it forever. And it's interesting how you come through life and you become an expert in these certain things. And you think, wow, if I had talked to somebody at different phases in my life, the value it could add to my life around like decision-making, money it could save you. Like, should I really get the certification? Is it worth the money? I mean, there's so many questions we can ask that if we could just talk to somebody that has that similar experience, I mean, it could really make a huge difference for people. And we're finding that Like Family is providing that experience.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. And full disclosure, I have signed up to help you with that, and I love the opportunity to continue to promote it because it's a great idea. The minute you told me about it, I was like, I'm in. Whatever it is, I'm in. This is a great idea because you're right. I mean, I'm an extrovert like you, and I even feel confined in this COVID world that we have now. I can't imagine what somebody else would feel like who's just like me, who just has zero connections. So.
Yeah, where we found our first little niche audience was people who had just moved. And even though I don't feel particularly fond about Facebook, it is helpful to get your word out to people that are in a really specific life situation. And we found that lots of people have moved during the pandemic but can't get out to meet people. So we're having lots of folks that just want to have a happy hour with someone or have a cup of coffee remotely, and it's just helping people deal with the loneliness of the situation.
That's awesome. So based on what you were saying, it sounds like you fell into IT. Would that be a good way to kind of describe that?
I would describe it like that. Like I've always been a yes person and I like to learn. And so I just kind of started life out that way. And what I realized is one of the things I was most insecure about in my IT pursuit is that I was a generalist. Like I learned a little bit about procuring from the Office of Naval Research. And then I learned about how to procure IT equipment from Peace Corps and then how to get a project done in IT. And I realized that it's really about problem solving skills and to not be, that being a generalist was actually my best asset, that I could talk to the customer and then I could communicate with my smartest engineer and make those two ends meet. Once I realized that value, I realized it wasn't that IT is a people job. And I think that's something that people might not get at first, or maybe that from their particular path in IT, there are some jobs where you could sit at your desk and not interact with people, but there's a real beauty in connecting the dots between the developers and the customers or the engineers and the users. So yeah, I think I have never been scared of problem solving or, just making two people that are disparate understand each other. And that's how I got into IT, but I don't still feel like I do IT.
Well, you do, because I've seen the products your team has produced, so that counts.
I'm just a talker.
So now that you've been doing this, or at least been working within the IT field a little bit, especially since you're not coming from a traditional IT background, this would be interesting. What is something about the way we do IT or the people in IT or something that within our area, our field, that if you had the magic wand, the Harry Potter magic wand, and you could make a change, that you would change? What's something you would look at?
There's a couple things that come to mind. I think the first is to not be afraid to present something that is half-baked. I feel like sometimes we get in this, like, let's architect it, let's solution it, let's get it all the way done before we maybe present it, or sometimes I find that we just get into the thing where, like, we see the end and that's what we really think about. And it's more, I know we have different perspectives on Agile, but I do love the iterative process, because the way I've built Like Family is not about like what Like Family is today. It's what can I get done in the next 2 weeks? What can I get done in the next 2 weeks? And by cranking out a little by little, I think you can accomplish so much more versus these huge efforts, I guess. I would rather see the IT community march a little bit in a few different directions, not being scared of the experimentation phase where we're going to try a couple of different things and that might cost a little bit of money, like investing in that R&D. Like, I haven't seen a good R&D budget in a while where people can just go play. And I mean, I'm sure probably budget related and it's all very wise, the people that decide this stuff, but we need to continue to grow and learn. And with that comes experimentation and buying a couple of different products and testing them out. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is really having our business analysts be really experienced. I mean, it takes everybody to kind of make things work, but I found that working with really experienced BAs has led to a lot better products. And it's really just mind-blowing and just giving them enough time to gather their requirements, because we really want to rush and get things done. But if we give them that time up front to engage with the customer and give them the trust and let them work, it's going to make for a better product, and it's going to make for less waste. And it's hard because we want to get done, but if you get done with something that people don't like, it doesn't matter, how fast you got it done. And I've been really trying in my products to protect that business analyst time and to make sure that there's always some BA that really understands the business need and really understands the IT. I mean, they're unicorn people. I love a good BA. They just make your life so much easier.
That's interesting. I mean, I think you're illustrating something I've said for a while within the government space, for sure, since that's where I've been, that as we adopted Agile, we seem to drop some of those other things that we used to do really, really well, where we would go and kind of, integrate ourselves into the business area and get to know them as the people, as the processes of what they were doing. When we went and we built classic requirements, we do a lot of that up front, a knowledge exchange, and then build this large monolithic requirements book, which I don't agree we should do anymore, for sure. Right. But we're missing that, you're right, that relationship piece that helps you build the trust, because once you start iterating, you got to have a level of trust.
Absolutely.
And
And I think too, like the product owners, what I'd always heard in my training is that product owners should actually be someone within the business.
hmm,
And I find that having a champion in the business is so important, but no one's going to take accountability or responsibility for a product like the product owner. And I feel as though being able to maintain budget and saying yes to features and no to features, it's really important that the person in the business is as invested as the rest of the team. Because I think we kind of lob everything over to say, hey, IT, can you get this done? And then we lob it back. But having that person, and I don't want to move out of IT, but I feel like traditionally with product owners being in the business,
hmm.
so they are familiar with all that stuff instead of having to learn it and then translate it, I think is helpful as well.
Yeah, I think larger consulting firms or larger agencies do that a little different, right? They do the whole program management aspect where you have a program manager who specializes, say, in HR line of business or
Yeah.
financial line of business, right? I think you're illustrating for us as a smaller entity, it's a little harder because we just don't have the staff to dedicate to those kind of roles. But that's interesting. I think that's a really interesting change.
Well, and this is why I really appreciate the fact that I've been so lucky to be a generalist and to have learned a little bit about a lot of stuff. And I would just like channel that to any of your listeners to say, don't ever feel uncomfortable about not knowing something. Like, you know a lot, your life experience teaches you a lot, and no matter what, you can solve any problem with enough elbow grease and asking people for help. I know I come to you over the cubicle wall in our loud voices to ask questions. You know, like we have these wonderful networks, and to use them and to say yes to any opportunity you want and figure it out as you go.
That's true. That's very true. So then, looking to the future for either yourself, right, maybe your career goals, or certainly where you see like family going into the future, or within the product development space, whichever makes the most sense. But where do you see what's coming in the future for you?
I see big things for like family, not to jinx us, but we've got so much interest recently from different types of people. Like I love the diversity across our like family visitors in every sort of way, and like life experience, political beliefs, spiritual beliefs, all this stuff. It's awesome. And then the diversity within a person to all of their life experiences and how, I mean, we have one person who just applied. She's a professional archer. She wants to be a cop and she likes pottery. And I'm like, yes. I just think that we're such a special platform that's really going to help people feel connected, and it's going to improve people's days. And once we find our right way to like advertise to people, for people to understand it, I think like the future is ours. We just need to kind of get there. And so I don't think I can imagine what's in store for like family, but I'm just excited to be on the ride.
That's awesome. Well, I want to say thank you, Sarah. I mean, we're friends. We work together, but we're friends. And I want to thank you for accepting the invitation. I'm sure, you know, you maybe up front, you weren't sure exactly what to say, but I think your story is unique. There aren't too many people I know who work within any IT career job that started as a chemistry major. So I think that adds to our capability that anybody can take a shot and try something new. And like you said, I think problem solving and those just capabilities of the willingness to jump in and just do the work are huge benefits in any IT career field.
Absolutely. It takes all types. There's no right personality. There's no right experience. That willingness to learn and the willingness to work are the things that can get you there in an IT career. And to not be intimidated and know that, I mean, it was just like rugby that took, there's a place for everybody. There's a place for everyone in IT. It's just finding what suits you, and to not be afraid to try new things.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Jeremy. This was so much fun.